Good morning, YouTubers. T-Square here with T-Square Talks. Hope everybody's having a great day. It is Tuesday morning, and I got a pretty cool video, I think, for you guys today. I think it's a cool video because it's a question I've heard a lot. It's a question that I've actually seen people start collecting more and more of. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some other precious metals that some people may not even consider precious at all. What are the metals? Copper and nickel. And why? You know, these two metals that I happen to have in, really both are in this roll. And this roll has some copper and some zinc in it. But why am I talking about it? So I had a buddy of mine ask me the other day. He collects ACs and he will bust them up. He'll break them all down and he'll separate out the copper. And most of the time when he does that, he will take the metal in and sell it off right off the bat. Well, he asked me if gold and silver are doing a good job holding its ground, why is copper not really doing it? And, you know, so I wanted to talk a little bit about copper today. I've seen people buy copper rounds and pay some really high prices, as high as $5 a round for a copper round. That's 1 ounce of copper for $5. Now, do I think that person's going to get their money back on that? Probably not. I won't say it's impossible, but I don't know if it's likely. Now, if you're picking them up for $1, then you probably, you know, you enjoy them. You're probably not going to go wrong. I got another member and subscriber to the channel and member actually that collects copper rounds, and he likes them. And I think they're a great thing, especially if you can pick them up cheap. But the easiest way to get copper is just through pennies. And some people know this. Some of you guys have been following the channel for a while. You've heard me talk about this before. You might have even seen my coin collection video where I dropped off a bunch of stuff, but we're just going to bust this open real quick. They're not all copper, but there are a few in here. I actually opened the roll a minute ago just to make sure that there was at least 1 or 2. I apologize, my hands being dirty. I've been outside working in the garden all day today. It drives me nuts to see my hands on camera after I've been out working. So taking a look, for those of you that don't know about copper, any pennies before 1982, those are going to be copper. 1982 is a mixed year. You have some copper and some zinc because that's when they started transitioning. It's pretty sad when we can't even make an honest penny anymore because our pennies are zinc and they're not really even worth a penny. Although, little to people's knowledge, even the zinc pennies will soon be worth even more because zinc's going up too. Everything is going up in price. Now, the other one is the nickels, and some people don't even really know the composite of a nickel. So a nickel is actually made up of copper and nickel. And, you know, one of the funny stories about nickels, there's some people out there that will collect silver nickels. I used to be one of them. I still have some somewhere. I just don't know where. But with that being said, I'm a big fan of nickels anyway, because nickels, I believe, well, nickels and copper pennies are going to be like the old silver dimes. Remember when, some of y'all remember, some of y'all may be too young to remember, but in the old days when you could actually get silver quarters, silver dimes, silver halves in your pocket change. I've had many subscribers leave me comments saying that, you know, when he was a kid, he would actually pull out all the silver money with his dad. Or they would just pick it out of the bank. When they were at the bank, they'd get a roll and spend the other stuff. In fact, if you've ever seen the movie The Pianist, it takes place during the German war times. There was a scene in it where the pianist is up on stage playing, and he is asked to stop playing for a minute. And it's kind of interesting because when he stops playing, you see the guy that asked him to stop. He's in the very front row, and only for a minute, and he's sitting here like this. And then he pulls the ones, and he puts the good ones in his pocket. And then he uses the junk ones to pay the bill and says thank you, and they continue playing again. It's a great clip, and it really educates people. Now, they're not looking at pennies. They're looking at gold coins. Because just like any currency and essentially any country in history at one time has switched over from real money to fiat money, to other metals. And they do that because it's a way that they can keep the gold, they can keep the silver. In this case, I don't know if they specifically did it so they could keep the copper, but it definitely was cheaper to make zinc pennies after 1982 because the copper kept inching up little by little. And it even got to a point where copper spiked so high during the inflation times that essentially people were taking pennies and just melting them down. Now, it's kind of interesting. We've never really seen or heard much about nickels. Now, nickels, to me, though, is probably even the better one. And some people might not know why. The reason I like nickels better is because of what happened about a year ago in the nickel market, maybe 2 years ago, where JP Morgan had essentially tons and tons of nickels and, nickel, not nickels. They had tons and tons of the metal nickel, and someone put in an order for it, and they wanted to buy it all. And ironically, when they got it, it was river rock. That's right. It was just plain old rocks. It wasn't nickel. JP Morgan said they didn't know what happened. You can actually look this up. The stories that came out right after. The nickel market surged in price by like literally tenfold. Well, what happened? They shut the markets down. They did a short investigation for a few days on where the nickel was, what all happened. When it was all said and done, everybody's trades got canceled and reversed, and the prices came back down, and essentially they just restarted the market as if it never happened. Now, what people didn't see was the huge amount of short positions that actually went in to try to get the market back in check. It was a temporary thing. Now, the problem here is, in my personal opinion, is when inflation starts getting really bad again, we could see copper, nickel really have another big spike. Now, here's another thing to consider. A lot of people don't realize that the pennies have even changed. I had someone tell me one day that copper can never really go up because if it did, people would just melt down the pennies. Well, they're not copper anymore. That's why. So being able to go to the bank and buy a roll of pennies and separate out the copper. I actually know one guy who he works at a convenience store, and one of the things he does is, for those of you that don't know, when you look in the till, there's usually, on the average cashier till, there's a spot for pennies, a spot for nickels, dimes, quarters, and then a miscellaneous. Some people say that's for halves. Some people say it's to put rolls of change in there. But what he does is every penny that comes in, he actually throws his copper pennies in that spot. And he always takes cash pennies for customers and puts them to the right side. But on the left side is where he puts his personal good pennies. And when he handed them to me one day and showed me, I was like, oh my word, they're all copper? And he said, no, those are the ones I save. I'm just playing with you. And I was like, wow. And I couldn't believe, because I've never seen a cashier do that. But this is a gentleman that literally fills 5-gallon jugs of them. And, you know, he's not the only person I know that does that. I know a few other people that have stacked away copper pennies, and they're sitting on large amounts of copper pennies. A lot of times in the comments, people will even say, why would anybody buy copper rounds when they can just collect pennies? And so it's kind of an interesting thing to think about and to do. I don't know for sure how high copper and nickel will go, but it's a strong possibility that it will continue, continue to go up. As we see silver slowly creeping up again, sitting at $29.50 right now. We're seeing gold slowly inch up again. No tremendous gains. We're not going to get rich quick overnight, but we are seeing it continue to climb. So having the opportunity, in my personal opinion, to be able to pick up pennies for literally a penny that are copper is a pretty good deal. And you might even get lucky and find some good wheat pennies. You might get lucky and find maybe some Indians. Who knows? You might even get lucky and find the ultimate 1909 VDBS penny. That'd be San Francisco. I had to think for a second what it was. I'm not a big fan of looking through pennies. I do have a bunch of boxes of pennies. I think I have probably 30 boxes of pennies right now. I just don't have the time right now to sit there and go through them. But here's the thing. A lot of banks now are putting restrictions on buying change. Some people know that, some people don't. Maybe your bank does not have restrictions, so don't all put it in the comments. My bank said I can buy all I want, and some banks are still cool about that. But I can tell you from my past videos that when I used to buy tons and tons of $half, my banks all stopped that. They won't sell me $half anymore. You know, they won't even sell me $2 anymore, $2 bills. They have shifted and said, no, if it's pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, that's it. And there's a limit on how much of that I can even get. So, because I look at it, whenever I get nickels, you'll never see me spend nickels. Some people find that so weird. They're like, oh, you got a nickel right there. Yeah, I'd rather give them the dime and they give me a nickel. Because I recognize the nickel as real money. Can you imagine if all of a sudden the dollar did hypothetically collapse, what that would do to the change value? In many countries, what we've seen too is when they do resets on the currency, they'll reset the currency, but there's not that much change in circulation compared to the amount of bills, fiat bills that are out there. So what they'll do is they'll keep the change the same and revalue the dollar. So think about this for a quick second. All of a sudden, they knock a zero off of the dollar. And anybody that thinks that can't be done, we've seen it happen in many countries. But let's just say the $10 bill is the new $1 bill. But if you're holding 4 quarters, those quarters are still $1. A lot of people can't think that can happen, but it can. You know, and here's the thing, just like these dimes. There was a time when people were out there saving these silver dimes. They would pull them out of the till, and they got laughed at. Come on, there's nothing special. Look around. You can open a roll of dimes, and you'll find a bunch of silver dimes. You can open up a roll of pennies, and you'll find a bunch of copper pennies. Now, there ain't no more silver dimes in circulation. There's not many. I won't say there ain't none. There's some, but there's just fewer and fewer. Will copper and nickel be the new precious metals? You know, I think before that happens, we'll see silver really take off and join the rest of the precious metals with a higher price of, who knows, at least $400 or $500, maybe even $600. Then on top of that, another thing I meant to start out saying in the beginning of the video, when I got asked about that, you know, why copper's not really going up. You know, copper and nickel are heavy in industrial metals, which is one of the arguments that I hear when it comes to silver. That, oh, silver can never go up because it's an industrial metal and they need it so they can sell stuff. Well, here's the thing. Eventually, when silver does go up, it's going to be hard for them to keep their finger on every metal. And when you really think about what's going on with copper and nickel and silver, with the solar panel industry, with potential grid problems. Right now, they're saying everybody needs to upgrade their grids, their power grid infrastructure. That's going to take a lot of copper. Where are they going to get all that copper from? With new car batteries, investigating the nickel batteries, with the new solar cars, electric cars, all the different things that they're trying to implement. Do I think it's going to take off? I said solar cars. I meant solar panels or electric cars. Someone's like, solar car? Is there such thing as solar car? I know my buddy has a power charger that he keeps in his truck that is solar based. He keeps it right on his dashboard and can plug in stuff to it, which is kind of pretty cool. But it's a short video today. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. Why? Because I do save my copper pennies. I do save my nickels. Usually the copper pennies that I do go through is stuff that's in my pocket change. I'm not going to sit and go through a whole box of pennies because I don't have the patience for that. But it's something worth considering doing or checking into. It's a way to get something that's worth more for essentially less. And people don't realize that a copper penny right now is like 2.5 cents. So with that being said, I thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. It may not be everybody's cup of tea today because it's not silver or gold related, but it's another precious metals. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think copper and nickel will eventually shoot up? Or do you think it's just going to stay down here pretty much worthless? I personally think everything is going to continue to go up. So with that being said, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys again on T Square Talk. Take care, everybody, and have a great day. Bye-bye.